Good afternoon, West Ham fans. Russ, the West Ham Network. Hope you're all safe and well. If not a little bit clammy, it's a bit sticky. It's sticky out there, isn't it, today? And it looks like it's going to rain quite a bit. Warm and wet. Not my favourite combo, I'll be honest. We spoke today about Cole Walker-Peters this morning, and then at lunchtime we spoke about maybe second chance saloons for some of the more high profile players we've been linked to, particularly Richard Rios. And now we've got the world famous Hammers headlines in association with the KUMB.com boys. 3 stories we're going to talk about. And actually only one of them is a transfer rumour. There we go. Let's start with, and actually 2 of them are from interviews, and it sort of cherry picked a few bits from those interviews because I think they're very interesting in terms of giving you an idea of what's going on under the bonnet and probably a reaffirmation, what we think's going on from a ball perspective. Let's talk the youth, shall we? Let's talk the youth. Now, West Ham's first team coach, Billy Reid, little Scottish Billy Reid, 61-year-old. He obviously is our first team coach. You follow Potter all the way from when he started in Scandinavia, all the way to Brighton, to Chelsea, now obviously to the London Stadium. The team and the coach Germany ahead of their pre-season training camp, and then obviously Saturday's friendly against Grasshoppers. Then they go to the US for the summer series. Now we know, obviously, they call it the West Ham 11, but they had the under 21s basically. They've been playing a couple of friendlies here, but there are a number of youth team players over there. We've spoken about them at quite length, the likes of Ezra Mayes and Preston Fearon, Erdrich Golombekis. I mean, again, I've spoken it again, highlighting Erdrich, but also Preston. These 2 are on the younger age. They're the 18-year-olds, and there's a lot of older players who are here, not over in Germany. So for them to be picked up, for me, shows a real willingness to look at what's not just sort of the cream at the top, but what's coming through. And arguably someone like Erdrich and also someone like Preston really could potentially leapfrog a couple of the older players into getting into the first team eventually. Not next year, I'm saying, but I mean, they're both 18, and Erdrich is only a centre-half at 18, and Preston needs putting a bit of weight. But they have it in my eyes. Now, what was interesting was Billy Reid did. I said Billy the kid. Billy Reid did an interview on the West Ham official website, and there were some really interesting things that were pulled out in terms of statements made by Billy, saying that young players will be given a chance. It's up to them to take that chance. We've got players coming back from their loan spells who did very, very well last year, and they'll be given opportunities as well. Got some fantastic young players at West Ham, and until you put them into a first team environment or into a first team game, you never know how they're going to react. So it would not surprise me on Saturday, and maybe even for the summer series, you see the likes of Ezra Mayers getting minutes. Obviously, the assumption is Lewis will get minutes, Kaling will get minutes. Obviously, Ollie's around. Maybe Callum Marshall getting minutes. Maybe Erdrich Golombekis. Some players, maybe even Finn Herrick is over there, and you're going to see a lot of these players feature in the pre-season. And hopefully you guys have kept abreast of the West Ham Network and the Academy show, so you know who these players are. If not, go back and check about me waxing lyrically like the Erdrich, about, Erdrich Golombekis and stuff like that. I think you'll see a number of them play. And that will, I think, really not cement, that's the wrong word, because we are being linked to a lot of players, but he's called out in the interview Ollie and Lewis, and hopefully more of them can shine this season too. Graham's a manager who won't be afraid to put young players in. Now we know what's going to happen. We're probably going to have the pre-seasons, going to the summer series, and then there'll be a little bit of an exodus, I think, for loans, based on the squad, what we need to keep in the squad in terms of homegrown, academy-based players, and then there'll be a number of people who are maybe on the peripherals who will probably favour and be more inclined to go on loan in order to gain first team football, first team experience, possibly the likes of Callum Marshall, and people like that. I think Caden will go out on loan. I think Lewis Orford will both go out on loan, because for me, they're going to be good players, but they are good players now, but they're on the peripherals in terms of breaking. And in terms of some of Lewis's, development, going out on loan, I think, is the next step. And as I said, I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday, maybe, the sort of Freddie Potts blueprint applied to Lewis, maybe even not even 2 years, maybe in 1 year, and then seeing what happens. Then you've got another year. The likes of Guedo will probably move on, or and JWP and Suchet all year older, rather than not year younger, not Benjamin Button. So it's, for me, it's music to the academy players' ears. I've seen Billy personally at the under-21 games, sat behind him, and so I know he's there as well. So I know it's not just hot air. There's a real, what's the word? Sort of laser focus on where we can bring, because eventually, from a business perspective, these guys are 100% profit. 100% profit. They come from the academy, and so it makes good business sense as well as West Ham fans having that extra, boy coming through the academy on the pitch. All helps. And I think we'll see, we won't be at the bottom of the table for minutes for academy-based players, where we were under Lopetegui until really Potter came in, to be honest, because the first thing he did was bring Ollie Scarles into the left wing back position. Bit of a home run, really, bit of an open goal, to be fair. Let's talk about a transfer room, and then we'll go back to another interview for another person's associate West Ham has done. Now, obviously, we await KWP. May well have already signed by the time this comes out. But I think, in all honesty, we'll probably announce that maybe on Monday, if not tomorrow. Obviously, it might do tomorrow. I mean, but I can't see it happening. He's still relatively relieved it was the medical today. Anyway, regardless of that, there are a number of players we've been linked with, and one of them and a lot of them are sort of being rinsed and repeated from the 6 weeks ago. So as we said, yes, at lunchtime, Richard Rios, Harvey Elliott still hovering about, Jack Grealish is still hovering about, and Marcus Tavernier is another one who's sort of hanging about again. The 26-year-old wide man from Bournemouth. He is, according to reports, still on the shortlist of potential replacements for Kudus. However, he does have a valuation which, for me, probably completely discredits him from any move, if that's the case. Bournemouth won about 30 million for him, which seems a bit spenny. I know he's 26. I know he can come in and do a job now, but 30 million, it seems a bit spenny. When you see a lot of the players we've been linked to seem to be around the 20 to 25. I don't know what, would 20 million seem more palatable for him? I don't know. I mean, he arrived for Middlesbrough in 2022 for 15 million, and he played for a Bournemouth side which, to be honest, have punched above their weight, really, in terms of their size, and they finished obviously in the top 10 last year. I think they may struggle a little bit this year. There seem to be a lot of the players that got them to that position are leaving or have left or are being linked with moves away, including Marcus. Yes, he's got a good mixture of athleticism, his delivery. He can play a number of positions, so that's always useful for the modern sort of wide midfielder. I just think for a little 30 million seems that would be the rest of the Kudus money gone on him and Diouf. And I think we could probably do better and spend that better than Marcus. He's a good player, but maybe, I don't know, does 20 million seem right to you? Let me know in the comments below. I think 30 seems a little bit expensive for me. And let's end with a player who technically is no longer with us, although we are still supporting him by all accounts in terms of his rehabilitation. Mikel Antonio. Mikel Antonio took to Beast Mode on podcast with Akin Fenwa, and good podcast. Obviously they've got a good relationship between two, good friendship. So they talk about the crash a little bit, but more about his career. There were a number of things picked out which show a disgruntled Macau. Now we know Macau can be a little bit disgruntled. We know also Macau can be a bit outspoken as well, particularly his podcast he did with Callum Wilson. I just sort of pick out some interesting things rather than you having to watch the whole thing. I thought I'd pick out the relevant bits. There's some sort of headings. One of his, he definitely had a chip on his shoulder about being undervalued by the club. He said, he quoted, "So every year I was at West Ham, they were either talking about getting rid of me or replacing me. There was never once in the last 10 years I was there that I actually felt like this is my spot. I am the guy." Which is quite incredible with someone who's a Premier League, West Ham Premier League all-time goal scorer, although that may change at the end of the season, hopefully, with Bowen. He actually jokingly said, I wish Jarrett would just move on and leave so I can keep my record because there's no one else around who's close to it, which is very true, to be honest. There was a thread about being consistently underpaid compared to new signings. He was quoted saying, "Every year I'd sign a new deal. And then they'd said, sign someone else in my position and give them more money." They signed Seb Haller, and he was nearly on £40,000 a week more than me. So, but I sort of get that, but really, isn't it? You have, unless you have into your, in terms of football perspective, unless you have in your contract that you're always going to be the top earner, you are going to get people coming in earning more money. Same as a job, it's like I've been in my current job for 5 years. I've no doubt there's people who've come and started after me who are probably on more money just because of the way it happens. So there's always it does seem a thread with him in terms of being underpaid, undervalued. And he did say, he said it would often take mental tolls. I mean, Mikhail's one of those guys who, when he's on beast mode, he's unplayable, but when he's not, sometimes it's a little bit hit and miss, isn't it? And he said, I'd ask for a raise based on performances and stats. And they'd say, no, you don't deserve it. Then hand that same money to someone else. As a footballer, you feel like a piece of meat. This is just a job at the end of the day. Exactly. And then asked about sort of contracts and things like that. He goes, "I enjoyed my time at West Ham. I wanted to stay. So they kind of had me and they knew it." And again, implied that he sort of mentioned that there was he sort of implied that he didn't get his value in terms of what was, and we're led to be believed that West Ham offered him a deal which was on a performance based, particularly with the injury. I mean, the thing is, you've got to caveat this with, you've just had an injury now, Michael, and where you were minutes away from not only losing your legs, but potentially losing your life, and there's a risk element in that as well, isn't that, from the club? You might return, but can you return to be the same player that you were? So actually, a performance based offer, minimum, a small weekly wage with, heavily ratcheted in terms of performances and appearances, seems the obvious answer. I'm surprised, and to be honest, in all honesty, there was a discussion that there was multiple offers on the table. I haven't seen him, so not saying he won't, but I thought, I wouldn't necessarily say he burnt bridges with the podcast, but there is definitely an underlying theme of being disgruntled at the way. And to be honest, we've seen that multiple other times. James Collins. We know that there was an acrimonious sort of departure there. Never really getting that testimonial. No. Cresswell never got the testimonial. Antonio technically was here for almost 10 years as well. And yeah, actually go and listen to it. Go listen to it on the Beast Mode on podcast, and let me know what you think in the comments below. That's my view. I think there's definitely a thread of resentment. There's a thread of pride as well in terms of what he achieved, but there's definitely a thread of resentment in terms of, sort of the acrimonious way it sort of ended. But that always happens, isn't it? A player's contract will, a player leaves because another club want to sell him, or he's not offered a new contract. Sometimes players make decisions to retire at the end of the season, but usually that's a result of not being offered a contract by a club. And that sort of permeates, okay, well, I'm going to leave. I'm going to retire now anyway, actually. And so I'll be interested to see where his next move happens. Or could he do a Carlton Cole? Anyway, my friends, thanks very much for your time. As per usual, if you're new around here, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to like, share, all that good stuff. It really genuinely helps us out. Go back and watch our video interview with Liam Withnall, the comedian, just about to start his Edinburgh Fringe show at the Monkey. Can't remember what it's called, but go back and listen to it. Anyway, take care. Stay safe. Stay cool. Everybody be cool. Much love.